Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Knit a Spell. I'm so excited, Katie.
Yes, me too.
My former neighbor, did you know that
my gosh.
she used to live down the street? We used to live in the same neighborhood. Laura Tempest Zakroff, visual artist, author, designer, an amazing dancer, and witch. Her work embodies myth and the esoteric through her drawings, paintings, jewelry, talismans, and other designs. Plus, she's a cat mom, and she's amazing and a fabulous friend. If you ever have a chance to be her neighbor and friend, you couldn't ask for a better one. She's the author of the bestselling Llewellyn books, Weave the Liminal, Sigil Witchery, and most recently, Anatomy of a Witch, among others, as well as the award-winning Liminal Spirits Oracle, The Witch's Cauldron, and more. Welcome, Tempest, to Knit a Spell.
Yay! Thank you for having me. Now I have the, won't you be my neighbor?
That's what I was thinking too. Tempest, won't you be my neighbor, please? Sounds amazing.
Light from Lantern presents Knit a Spell. I'm magical maker, Katie Rempe.
And I'm the maker of magic, James Devine.
Join us as we stitch together the symbiotic relationship between crafting
and the craft.
We had the house next door to us went up for sale a while ago, and it was like, anybody?
The listing. Yeah.
I'm putting the pride flag out front and a few other witchy things just to make sure we get the right neighbor. But
it was very tempting.
And so did you guys first meet just through being neighbors?
No, I think it was at one of the pagan-y witchy events. What? It's not what it's called now. What was that thing before it was called this? It's called something else.
It's funny. We might have first met in California or something and then realized, wait, we live down the street from each other. I think it might have been one of those situations and then became much closer because of that. Our partner, Llewellyn, also has something called Tempest Me Downs. So when Tempest had been downsizing in anticipation of her move, there was a yard sale and Llewellyn went over and has some, clothing of Tempest. And he still wears it when he goes out to the club. And he's like, oh yeah, this is one of my Tempest Me Downs.
Oh. It was a special time.
Okay, so Tempest, tell us your origin story. How were you raised? Where and how did magic or witchcraft enter your life?
I was born.
Once upon a time.
So I am the result of basically an Italian Sicilian Catholic and a Russian Baltic Jew, and was raised on the Catholic side. Mom won. I think that was part of the agreement that my mom could marry my father if the kids were raised Catholic. Okay. But at a very young age, I was like, what? Why can't women be priests and do the stuff? And I don't, understand, that I did. I got sent to the principal's office when I was 6 because we're doing a church tour. It was near the end of the year. It was almost my birthday, I think, around there. What even actually been on my birthday? And my brothers who are much older than me, they were acolytes, altar boys. So I had why can't I go up and sit where they sit? I don't understand that. And they're like, well, you can't. And I'm like, tell me why.
For no good reason.
Yeah. So at 6, I was like, this is bullshit. So kind of kicking that off, I was like, this is not right. And that's a very good student, because I've always been good little school person of doing, getting good grades and all that. So I know the ins and outs of Catholicism as well as other religions, but I just knew this is not. This is not a thing. And it wasn't until my teenage years, I had read The Mists of Avalon, which got me really angry. And I obviously don't recommend that book for other reasons now, but when I was 14, it was very inspiring to be like, there's other ways of, existing, and this religion was destroyed, and which we know it's mostly fiction, but not much longer after that, I found Drawing Down the Moon by Margot Adler. And here, especially at that time in the 90s where you had so many books coming out, but they had really fantasy covers. And I'm a very precocious, very serious child. It's it looks like a fantasy book. But then there's Margot Adler's book of like a photograph and NPR and all that. And I'm like, this looks like worth my time. And that's when I discovered there were all these different groups all over the United States. And one was coming from the UK, and that set off the whole everything in motion of like going out and finding because of course in the back, right, you have the send yourself addressed stamped envelope too.
Yes, exactly. Oh,
It's such a groundbreaking book. I remember reading that book, oh my gosh, 24 years ago, and just mind blown that there was so much that existed already. I had a concept of it, but Margot Adler's book on all the different traditions, and it was just one after another after another. And when I realized every time then I heard her on NPR as a reporter, and I thought, oh, she's a witch. I wish that I could have met her, and I had opportunities to meet her when she was still alive. We were in the same events and places, and I never got an opportunity because I didn't want to fangirl around her. But what an amazing book, that is, just as a resource. Yeah, I ate that book up too. I love that.
Unfortunately, it's a bit out of date, and it's not complete with everything. But I still think, especially if you're practicing in North America, to explain what's happening now, it's a great way to see what's going on. And I haven't quite found anything else that's as comprehensive and as balanced. She really brought the NPR practicality and research to that book. And there's been a few other books that seem to like kind of claim that they're doing the same thing. And it's like, this is my personal memoir. I'm like, you either are doing a exploration of these different traditions and past, or you're having a personal memoir. It's not both.
Not the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about witchcraft then spoke to you? It seems like you're pretty versed in several religions. What about this one in particular? I mean, not that it's a religion, but it's a practice.
A practice, way of life.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea that divinity reflects us, we reflect divinity, and that it's present within us and all around us. So being an animist and a pantheist, seeing all of that, a polytheist, all of the all the P's, those things coming into play, personal power, recognizing our influence over the world, that there are many subtle ways as well as profound ways that we can affect ourselves and the world around us. All of that just is called to my dark little soul.
And yet you seem like such a light personality. I always find people who say they're dark souls are actually like have a great sense of humor and, well, maybe that's part of it, right?
Yes, it is a prerequisite. Otherwise we'd be like
boring.
We can't all be Eeyore. Eeyore's job is taken.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Tempest will definitely put many lumps of sugar in that hemlock tea she serves you. Don't worry. It'll be sweet going down.
Yes. Is that the taste of almond?
What kind of brought you into writing books and being a published artist?
So when I got to college, I was looking for a group that would work for my own take on the world. And I didn't find that. And so I created a pagan society at RISD and Brown, and it expanded past that. And suddenly running a group, because I was like, I'm going to run a group. It's where like, I want to meet other witches and pagans. I guess I'm going to have to do this myself. I was deeply involved in, trying to read as many books as I could so that we could have rituals and have discussions and classes. It's also where I met my friend who was producing Crescent Magazine, which was a pagan publication of art, philosophy, and belief, and got involved with writing and editing for that magazine, as well as creating art. And so, and reviewing books as well, because Llewellyn and Weiser and everybody else was sending us books to review. And once you are doing that and also creating a website, because it was the 90s, I could write a book. And so I did. I started writing a book. I actually found my notes from the early books. And funny enough, a lot of it still jives for what ended up in Weave the Liminal. But my early attempts of writing a book were inhibited by a mother drive / hard drive failure, like fried everything. And I think that happened twice. I'll take the sign from the universe. I'm going to stop on the book. And then I got involved in dance. So that really became a big part of my life for many years. And then once my life changed again, I was like, I was already writing a lot about dance. So like the writing part never left, but it was just more of like, well, I can write about witchcraft, but I'm going to be writing about dance because I'm really involved with the dance community. And like, well, next phase, just bring it back to witchcraft. And I think it was 2015 is when I saw the proposal or call out for the Witch's Cauldron from Alicia. And I had already semi-proposed a book to Llewellyn for something else. And they're like, great, yes, send it to us. And I'm like, great, shit, I have to write it.
Once you get a proposal accepted, then you have that realization, oh, now wait a minute, it was easy to write a proposal. Now I got to write a book.
Do the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you have like, those was this not the speed dating, what are they called? The speed proposals at PantheaCon. That was for what is now Visual Alchemy. It'll be coming out in October. But it was like so close to my heart. I'm like, how do I rip this thing out and write about it? Oh, well, there's this Cauldron book. And, so I'm really good at procrastination. And my procrastination works by taking on other projects. So I'm not doing anything.
Yes.
I can produce an amazing amount of artwork that has no relation to the art project I need to work on.
Oh,
I call
see.
this
So you're
productive procrastination.
Yes. There's a procrastination.
Yes.
What? Say that word again.
TM.
Procrastination.
Procrastination.
That's your next book. I mean, if you ever get to it, which is part of, why it's the procrastination. Now here you are. You've published several books, a couple of Oracle decks. You have your brand new Oracle deck. What was different about doing the Anatomy of the Witch Oracle deck, especially since you had this book that is very much a companion piece that was published last year?
Yes. So for this particular Oracle deck, it was conceived as I was writing Anatomy of a Witch, particularly between the first and second draft, where it really was like, it's all such a new concept, a new material. Like there's nothing else like the Anatomy of a Witch out there. And I'm thinking, okay, how else can I translate this material? Because I initially imagined the Anatomy of a Witch was going to be more of a fully illustrated book, like a beautiful book that's more of an intro to witchcraft. And the thing is, like, it's a highly philosophical book and a theoretical book, so it immediately bumps it up. It's like, yes, you could be a beginner and read it, but you're still going to miss huge parts of it that until you've really practiced and experienced, you'd be like, oh, now I get what's going on here. So like there's this level of understanding, and then there's the deeper level. And so I thought, this would really lend itself to an Oracle deck because the Liminal Spirits Oracle, the first Oracle I did, while it seems to connect to Weave the Liminal, it's really a concept into its own. It takes some of the aspects in the Deity and Spirits chapter, but it's still like out. It's sort of doing that, like, I can touch it from over here sort of relation, where this is deeply integrated into the book, but you could still not read the book and work with the Oracle. So that's important too, because I don't want to be like, I was like, you have to buy all of my products in order to understand these things.
Because even the Oracle deck comes with a great little book. I mean,
yes.
Double your pleasure. Yes.
I love this idea that the illustrations that you wanted to be in the book can end up being an Oracle deck.
When I did the illustrations, there are 9 illustrations in the book, and I think 8 of them I used in the Oracle. But what I did was they were very washy, grayscale, almost neutral tones to make a black and white illustration. And then they got fully colorized by hand. Sorry, very dramatic. They got colorized. I went back and added the layers. Right, so you have almost all of those now in the Oracle, as well as the secret background that's on the cover. People are like, where'd you get the back of the cards from? And like, it's on the cover of the book. Yeah.
Duh.
It's secret. Because they faded it out a bit. So like it's there.
Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll dive into all of these cards, talk about which ones were some of your favorites, and more magical making things. We'll be right back. Hey, Knit fans, join our Patreon for just $13 a month to gain access to extended episode comments, episode outtakes, behind the scenes and bonus content, magical making tips, monthly polls to influence future topics and guests, and interact with your fellow patrons. Plus, you'll be supporting one of your favorite podcasts. Join today to gain access to our entire post history. Visit patreon.com/Light from Lantern to learn more and sign up. Jim and I look forward to seeing you there.
If you've ever been curious about getting a palm reading with my co-host James Devine, there's never been a better time than now. Not only does Jim offer empowering palm readings to help you tap into the hidden messages in your hands, he's also now offering Divine Hand Tarot readings for a limited time. Find out more about all of Jim's amazing offerings at thedivinehand.com and on his Instagram page where you'll find him as Divine Hand Jim.
And we're back. So I'm excited because while we were on break, Tempest pulled out some of the originals of her designs. So we're excited to see what they are and where they might be ending up soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the ones that were in the...
Oh, wow. This is the Cauldron. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, the ones that were in, which I wonder if that one made it in there or not. But if you look in Anatomy of a Witch, actually the one that's on the cover of the deck.
Ah, yes.
Of course, one of my favorites because of the hand.
Yes. That is chapter 6 or 7, I think, in Anatomy of a Witch. And they're just a lot more, pumped up with the color than they were originally. If I compared it to the scans, they were just very soft.
And so what's your medium that you're working with here?
So these are all pen and ink with watercolor.
Ooh, it's a commitment watercolor, as we just were talking about.
It's tremendous.
It is, it's just completely different than the Liminal Spirits, which was acrylic on birch panels. So you have this wood, and if you look at the cards, you'll see in some of them the wood grain working through because it's just a really smooth texture, or not smooth. Has a texture, has a distinct texture. Where with these, I was really thinking about anatomical and botanical drawings from, turn of the century and going back earlier. I majored in printmaking at RISD's, and I am especially an intaglio nerd. So engravings and etchings and woodcuts are my jam. Even though I haven't used a press now in a long time, I'm still using a lot of those techniques, and that has really influenced my drawings. Also alchemical drawings. The Golden Game, I think it's right there. It's a big yellow spine book on my shelf, has all these alchemical engravings, right? So I really wanted to tap into that feeling with this deck. So they careful little pencil drawings, then they were all inked, and then they were watercolored by hand. And then, so you will notice that these are white, right?
Ah, yes. Oh.
But when you see
the
card, so this is the digital magic, is that I still did all of these. Here's a little, I'll grab, I don't know where that one is, but we'll just hold it up for example, right?
Oh.
Is I digitally applied layers of parchment and vellum to the background. Because I also wanted that aged look than what the watercolor paper was going to give me. And the fun thing is that there are multiple templates that I made and move things around. So no background is exactly the same.
Right. When you look at the cards, you can tell if it was any other deck, all the corners would look the same.
Right.
Yep.
And so it looks like you painted every single background separately.
So clever.
Here's a good comparison. All right. Is the amulet
tricky?
Okay.
I mean, that is really, it gives you this, when you look at those edges in the actual deck, it just gives you such a beautiful variation.
Yeah,
it's
and I really love the line
beautiful.
work too. It's just, everything is so filled with motion, almost like it could have been done in a single line stroke, some of it, which I just gives it so much energy. I love it.
And I love this watercolor. I know a lot of your work to be the panels and the acrylic and, incorporating those textures. So it's nice to see.
Like another side of Tempest.
More of that, the range. I really think of you a lot as a visual artist first, and then as a writer, because you've told me this. Do you still consider yourself a visual artist primarily?
Yes. Yeah. So art has always been my primary language. But I'm also, as I've always made art, I'm telling stories in my head. So, it's exploring an idea. I remember when I was a wee thing, I would just illustrate stories, and there would be no actual written story, but I'd be like, this mermaid did this thing, and then there was this one, and then there's that, and just making page after page after page of that. And I think once you have already engaged in that sort of talking self, which I'm a Gemini, so of course,
yes,
I have all the information. Let me give it to you in 6 formats. It was pretty easy to tap into it. The funny thing, though, is I can't really art and write at the same time. I have a writing brain and I have a visual art brain. So even though I have the best of intentions, like when I'm making things like these, I might scribble a couple words down to be like, oh, as you're doing this one, this will be a good keyword for it, or some message that wants to get across. But it's still not the same. Like, I can't do back and forth. It needs to be, I'm either all making art or I'm all writing, and nothing in between.
Yeah. When you're drawing, painting, when you're doing visual art, what do you find is magical? Like, is there something that opens up for you as distinct from when you're writing? How is it different magically, or is it distinct magically?
I think so. When I look at sympathetic magic, when we are using candles and herbs and incense and oils and crystals and all that sort of thing, right? What do those do? They create a visual experience, right? As well as all the senses being activated. And I look at whether it's a sigil or a painting, I'm kind of doing the same thing too, right? I'm bringing in the colors and the marks and the sensations, the fluidity of it to create the image that's in my head. So much of my art starts with, having a vision, a dream, getting a glimpse of something or someone, and needing to put that down on a panel or a piece of paper. And it really enters a beautiful, quiet space in my head. It's a very trance-like, where time can pass. Who knows how long, I'm working on something, and just in the zone, right? And it's just one of the most relaxed states I can be in. There are moments where I'm like, I can't get that. The thing is not doing the thing I wanted to, which is why you often do like ink and acrylic, right? Because it's a very fast medium. I can't wait for the oils to be dry. I can't do these long-term things. I'm very now, where with writing, I'll have a concept I want to describe, but it's a different structural process of like, how do I put this sentence together, and how do I clarify these and add additional sentences to describe the concept so the person understands it. I don't really worry about that so much with art. Do I worry about the Oxford comma while I'm drawing?
Different priorities, yeah.
Right. And there's definitely a language to art and a pacing with perspective and shapes and orientations, but it's just such a more of a primal, or integrated, intuitive process for me. And words are my friends too. I like words. It just feels like there's so many more hoops. So I'm really non-stressed when I'm writing. I always feel like there's a certain level of like, okay, I get this done. So I can listen to music and podcasts and anything when I'm working on art. I only have instrumental music when I'm writing. Like, can't do anything else.
You had told us that the initial 7 or 8 designs for the cards came from your book. How then did you develop the remainder of the designs?
So I thought about, okay, how do I take these concepts in the book and make them interactive, and what's useful? Like, as a witch, what's useful for me? Because I think the best use for this deck is not necessarily divination about a situation in the future. It's what kind of ritual, what kind of spell, what kind of thing does my body need right now? And you could say that's divination, but it's more problem solving in some ways too. So I looked at what things are important to your practice. Well, the lunar, solar festivals, things like that, right? Timing is important, and the elements are important. And then we have these different states of being, whether it's birth or death or experience. cleaning, like these things that we do that are mundane, right, but are a major part of life. And then we have these the more witchy actions of cleansing and banishing and blessing and healing. And then we have the artifacts, because at the same time, when I was thinking about the body, if you're connecting to the body, you have things that are very specific, like, there's the witch braid. I'm still playing with the originals here. The hands, of course, Jim's going to grab the hands. I'm like, I should grab the hand card for Jim. The witch braid. So we're talking about hair. The witch bottle, technically bodily fluids. Are often known in there. I mean, there is a little section in Anatomy of Witch, the book, that's like, I could pee on this.
Yes. My dog uses it as her magical purpose all the time. Every time we go out. Yep.
I really feel that one.
And with the senses, right? So we have taste, taste and smell, scent, aroma, touch, of course, vision, all those different things.
And so in creating all of these cards for the deck, was one in particular like a favorite, or maybe one of the sections?
It's so hard, right? Because they're all children.
They're all your babies. All right, well, I'll ask you about one. How about that?
Okay.
All right, so one of the ones that I really loved, of course, was Protect, which has the stag, I guess, with the pentagram on the top. And it's funny because I have a tattoo.
Ooh.
Okay, how?
I know that.
There we go. It doesn't want to be seen. Sure. Yes, but it's like the same thing. So I was like, oh, it's my tattoo. So this one is like one of my spirit animals, the deer in general. So I would love to know a little more about this one.
So that was actually one of the first ones, outside of the illustrations that were for the book, right? That got coerced, co-opted into that. And that one started with a vision. So I had a vision of this sort of protective circle that is made up of, I think it's got rue in it, and mugwort and star anise, and I think rosemary. So, all of those are herbs of protection. And so seeing the circle, but also that kind of connection to the earth with the power of the deer, the stag skull in there. And of course, the red ribbon. Like when I think about protection and binding, or the little satchels that my aunts and grandmas would like stick in their bra, they're often like little red bags, right? Yeah. So all of those little bits of lore coalesced into that card.
That's so beautiful. I highly recommend this deck to anyone who has listened so far and is like, I need to see more. And if you're not watching the YouTube video, now would be a great time to scroll back a few minutes to see some of these amazing cards and originals that we've been looking at. So, ooh, I know. Okay, Jim wants to know about the hands.
Show me the hands.
Well, I know a lot about these symbols, but I want to hear from you.
So for the folks who aren't watching along, we have the Manafiga, the Mano Cornuta, and then we have the Hamsa, or the Hand of Fatima, right? All kind of mixed in there. And those are three big important ones to me. There are so many other things that we could have done, but the two particularly on the end, the medallions, I'm wearing a Mano Cornuta right now. I also have lots of Manafigas. Right. It's very heavy into Mediterranean culture as a symbol of protection, empowerment, as well as a bit rude. It has some of them have a little bit more rude meanings to them. And then also, as somebody who's been involved in folkloric and Middle Eastern and Arabic dance, all the variations, that the Hand of Fatima, which also crosses over into Jewish culture, so again, that comes down through the line. And then the eye, the seeing eye within that. So against the evil eye. So another layer of protection and this connection and peace to it. But the kind of the fun pun for that card too, and in the prescription for it, because there's a description and then there's a prescription, is like, you need to get hands-on. So when you get this, it's like, all right, stop being like, I'm just going to do a meditation. And it's like, all right, what physical things are you going to get active? What are you going to do with your hands? Hopefully you can do something, right, that is crafty, that is alternating things, not just thinking about it, reading about it, listening about it, but doing the thing. So that's brought into it too.
I love this because you have a snake around the egg.
Mm-hmm.
You have also that image sort of holding the paintbrushes with the music out of it. This is a very, very much knit a spell type of card.
Yeah.
You got the little needles in there.
Your ability to draw hands is unparalleled. I never can.
Were you just always a natural artist, like growing up?
My parents are fairly creative. My mom was very crafty. She was doing craft shows and things like that when I was little. And my dad has been an artist of sorts and a designer. So I grew up with some of his paintings and installations and dioramas in the house. But the funny thing is, around 3, really wanted to take gymnastics because this was the time of Mary Lou Retton.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a little gymnast. And I was not a very coordinated small child. This did not go over well. And then the poor instructors are like, your child is not quite fit for gymnastics, perhaps something else. And so at 3, I started taking art classes. They're like, well, she likes art, and that seems safe. You'll have to be coordinated for art, right?
Sometimes. No,
right, yeah.
Not necessarily. True. Yeah.
Yeah. And the joke is, by my time I was in college, I was taking dance and became a professional dancer. So there's different levels of coordination. I'm just not going to be flipping myself over bars and balancing.
Yeah. Your joints will probably thank you for that in the long run too.
Pretty much, remember the first art classes around 3rd grade, and then not 3rd grade, age 3. And then at 1st grade, I started going to more formal art classes. Where it was like once a week at a very prestigious local art school, and then go traveling over into Philadelphia every Saturday after that for that program too. So then that just continued all the way to college.
So what other projects do you have that are coming up? You must have something in the works. Or 8. Anything you can share with us?
Tell us about.
Yeah. Or events, it doesn't have to be projects.
So right now, like, from book 10 or 11. So Visual Alchemy comes out in October. And that's the follow-up to Sigil Witchery, and going deeper into art and magic as ritual and practice, and really making art accessible to everybody. Because that's the other thing too, is I think everybody can do art, and that society has really fucked us up in a way to say that art is separate, that art is elitist, that art is for the few, and it's for the rich. Like, fuck that shit. Art is for everybody. This is your right. Like, we all were doing finger painting. Like, you can still do that and tap into it. It's because many of us were talked out of drawing and painting and doing the thing, right? Oh, you can't make money at that. That's just silly, right? That we've lost that.
Or we've also, it's judgmental. Like, is that art good? Yeah. Because it's photorealistic or it meets a standard. Do you find that's also a block?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because you're like, is this good enough to go on the walls? Like, half the stuff that ends up in a museum isn't even the best artwork from any of these people. And it's all who knew a guy. And, it's such an arbitrary nonsense system. And I think that art can be healing and beneficial. And people are like, well, I always get especially with Sigil Witchery, I can't even, draw a straight line with a ruler. I can only do stick figures. And every single person who's taken that workshop who's told me that has, 2 weeks later going, look, I drew the thing. And like, I know you can do the thing. You can do that. Like, if you can write your name, you can make a sigil. It's not going to look like mine, and it shouldn't, because they're yours and your background and your experience and your hand is going to bring to it. So I feel that is true in everything we do. So I'm very, everybody do art. Sure, it might not sell at a gallery, but you're going to be better, feel better, and connect more with the parts of yourself that are hard to dig into.
Yes.
Through that. So that will be out in October. And we talked about a little bit of the break. We have the exhibition at the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft. So the Buckland Museum of Art. Buckland Museum of Witchcraft. Different kind of museum.
That would be appropriate. The Buckland Museum of the Art Magical.
Of Witchcraft.
Yes, exactly. Spelled specially. And so the end of September, we're, I think it's September 24th, 25th, we're doing the opening for that. And that will be up for, I'm not sure how long.
Where is the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft?
It's in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, what?
Yes. It'll be a nice little tour out and do some stops and, on the way around and back. So it'll be good.
Oh, yeah, that'll be fun. All right.
Fabulous.
So where can people find you on Instagram and your website and all of those fun things? And Patreon too, I believe you have, right?
Yes. All all the things. So I do have a link tree. So that's alchemy, and alchemy is spelled weird because I'm quirky and a dork. It's OWLKEYME. And so you use that for Linktree. It's alchemy.arts on Instagram. LauraTempestZakroff.com will also get you to all the places. So I'm not too hard to find.
And we'll have everything linked in our show notes to make it super easy too. So
Yay.
Also, we have a past show where we talked about sigils and sigil magic. And we talked a lot about Tempest and recommended her book,
Sigil Witchery. Yes.
Sigil Witchery. So go back and we'll link that in our show notes. Listen to our show, our past show about sigils and sigil magic, where we talk about Tempest, and we'll link again to her book on sigil magic, which is foundational to what my coven has done and what Katie has read about sigil magic. And the anytime you can take, like we said in that episode, when Tempest is doing a class on sigil witchery, on sigil magic, be it on Zoom or in person, take class, because it is fantastic. Exactly what she said. If you can write your name, you can make a sigil. It frees your mind to realize you are more artistic and magical than you realize, most likely.
Oh, Tempest, this was so much fun. We definitely want to have you back because this is only scratching the surface of your amazing talent, and I certainly have many more follow-up questions. So thank you so much for making time for us. And Jim, as always, it's been a pleasure.
I adore you. I love you, Tempest. I love you, Katie. This has been so much fun and so relevant. Art and magic and art together, and bunnies.
That's
and
right.
Kittens. Well, there wasn't any kittens. How come you didn't let the cats in to disrupt?
There's a cat right there.
Oh, well, of course.
No, the cats are sleeping on Nathan downstairs. So if he is in a horizontal position, there are cats on him, and I am not worthy. So I'm not good nap territory. But thank you all so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. Awesome. All right, everybody. Until next week, we'll see you then.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes and Spotify, or following Knit a Spell on Instagram.
You can also subscribe to the Light from Lantern YouTube channel to enjoy full episodes of Knit a Spell and see our happy faces.
You can also learn more about readings, classes, and events going on with your favorite maker of magic, James Devine, by visiting thedivinehand.com and subscribing to his newsletter. Then follow Jim's fun and interactive Instagram account at DivineHandJim.
Keep up with Katie, the magical maker, by subscribing to her newsletter at lightfromlantern.com. You'll even receive a free knitting pattern as a thank you gift. Then follow Katie on Instagram at lightfromlantern for even more magical making tips. See you next week.